Hi, my name's Jim Simek. I'm with a firm called Job Hunt Coach. We provide services, almost anything to do with you and your search for your next position, your next job. We do resumes, we do cover letters, we do LinkedIn profiles. We provide coaching services along the lines of job search as well as interview, both the phone screen interview as well as the face-to-face interview. Just want to survey over the next few minutes some of the highlights of things you need to at least keep in mind, kind of food for thought, things that occur during the process of search as well as the interview process, to make sure that you either have an effective search or that there's nothing that you might have done in the interview that has cost you the position. Again, very high level. We got short time, so it's going to be rather brief, but I'll try to highlight the most salient points. First off, I'll just comment the resume is most important. As you might expect, it stands between you and the interview, so do a good job in your resume. It needs to have, it needs to communicate interest. We usually begin our resumes with a professional summary, which is kind of your selling proposition or your personal commercial. Lets them know what it is you bring to the table. We'll include then a bulletized list of your core competencies, skills, both soft and hard. Then we go into a chronology of your work experience, and two key points here is if you have gaps in your work experience, obviously you were doing something during that time. You need to fill that gap with some kind of information. Let them know exactly what you were doing during that period of time. Could be you taking some educational classes, to help transition yourself to a new industry, but it needs to be filled. That's an easy pickup on a mechanical scan. The other thing about your chronology of work experience is you need to move beyond activities and don't just describe things you were involved in, but think about, okay, I was involved in that activity, but what was derived? What was the benefit derived from being involved in that? Did we save some money? Did we increase some business? Did we, increase sales? Things along those lines. We kind of push the envelope. What they're really looking for is what was the accomplishment and what was the benefit to the company by you being engaged in that activity. Last section, of course, is your educational section. Be key on buzzwords, keywords. They do optical scans, and if an employer is looking for a particular kind of person with certain skills, they'll be looking for those keywords that relate to the requirements of the job. So again, keywords and buzzwords embedded in your resume are very important. Let me move on to the job search. Now that you've got your resume polished up, the first thing you'll probably do is push that over to one of the web boards, and that's fine. You're not really in control. You're waiting for somebody to find you. There are some tools available that automate that process of launching your resume out to a multitude of sites. Resume Rabbit is one, but again, with a keystroke, you can get out to about 100 sites with very little effort. Good that you're out there. What that does, though, is free up time now for you to go pursue other channels of identifying opportunities. One thing that's always stood and will stand in going forward is the fact that personal networks are by far the most effective way of finding a new job. So what you want to do is, if your personal network is a little bit dated, you want to rebuild it. Start making recontact people that might be in your network at this point, renew those contacts as well as build them. There are a lot of facilities now on the web that enable you to build networks in somewhat of an automated fashion. LinkedIn is one site that's a professional networking site. It's been around for a while. You can easily grow and build your network very quickly there, especially with signing into specialty groups that maybe relate to your specific function or your industry. It could be a professional society or whatever, but there are options in LinkedIn for you to associate yourself with some of these special interest groups. Plaxo, Facebook, they're all being used for the same thing. They're a good facility to help market yourself, get yourself out into the marketplace, and let people know who you are and what your background is and what it might be that you're looking for. Trade shows are a good place to network. If you think about trade shows, you'll find out a little bit about them usually in the paper. They'll tell you what vendors will be there. If it looks like there's some companies you want to cold call on, pack your bags, bring some business cards and a couple of resumes with you, and attend at least the trade show floor. Make contact with these people. They're not going to be the appropriate people. They'll be sales and marketing people, but at the appropriate moment, just let them know that in career transition, just wondering if your firm is doing any hiring. Then you swap business cards, and then importantly is that you follow up in a week or so. Make sure you follow up with that contact. They also have a lot of forums set up at the trade shows, seminars, things of that sort, which bring a lot of people together. Again, you've got to take advantage of those situations where there are people from other companies in that room, coffee breaks, things of that sort. Make it your business to bump into people, get yourself known, give them the elevator speech, swap business cards, so on and so forth. Locally, there's a lot of things that go on around the neighborhood. Community job centers usually have networking sessions. Basically, they're a round table. You go there, it's totally free. You introduce yourself to everyone in the room, let them know what your background is and what you're looking for. You can share a resume or a business card with people in that room. Once they go around the table and they complete that, you might find that someone has overheard across the table what you were looking for, and in their search had stumbled on a job that you might be interested in following up on. So they come over, exchange notes, and voila, you've got a contact. When you look at the classifieds, open your eyes up a little wider and think about companies that repetitively advertise in the classifieds. They have to be healthy, so they might be a good prospect to cold call on. Cold calling is simply a matter of creating a letter of introduction in some fashion, letting them know what you can do for their firm. You attach your resume and send it to the appropriate person. Blind alleys, certainly, but sometimes you luck out and you're the first person there inquiring, and they may not have advertised the positions as yet, so you have a great advantage and less competition in that situation. There are a myriad of other networks. There are job clubs. Many churches these days have career transition forums, or there are free sessions that run a few times during the week to help people kind of re-gear in terms of repositioning themselves in the marketplace. The scope of this is far wider than the time we have allowed, so I've just given you some examples of some of the important things in terms of job search and networking. Cold calling is certainly a tactic that, as I say, can minimize your competition. It does take some effort. There might be some blind alleys. But again, personal networks, get those rebuilt if they're a little bit stale. That's where you want to spend most of your time, is rebuilding some of those personal networks. Let's talk about the interview. Let's say that something happens, one of these tactics works, somebody finds you on the web and surprises you with a phone screen. If you're the type that's rattled by a surprise call like this, you can try mentioning that you were heading out the door to a doctor's appointment and could this be rescheduled. If they seem agreeable, that's great. If you get some hesitation, you probably ought to take the interview. They just may pass over you in that case. Set of questions usually is part of the question. The line of questioning is usually from the hiring manager, and they're along the lines of qualifying you. Can you do the work? Can you do the job? The other set of questions typically are behavioral in nature. How do you deal with stress? What's your weakness? How do you deal with conflict? They'll also probably touch on things like compensation, as well as your willingness to relocate. Once past the phone screen, if you're successful getting through that process, you'll be called in for a face-to-face interview. Usually the day before the interview, it's a good idea to call in just to make sure that things are still on track. A lot of times these things are scheduled, somebody gets pulled off on a fire drill, you go in there and the whole thing has to be reset anyhow. So it also sends a signal to them that you're a very time-managed person. You don't leave anything to chance, so it does send a good signal. When you get there, you'll fill out an application, do a good job on the application. Sometimes they'll benchmark you to some extent by your neatness, completeness, thoroughness. They're looking for misspellings. Once that's all done, you'll be introduced to the hiring manager. It may be that it could be a panel interview, or it may be more likely that you'll be meeting with the hiring manager first and then meeting with 2 or 3 peers of the hiring manager for second and third opinions. It's important to do a nice professional greeting, firm handshake, good eye contact. The body language is still a very important part of this whole thing. Throughout the interview, kind of monitor yourself for your appearance as being alert. You don't want anything about your body signals to be interpreted in a way that could be lack of interest, or he's checked out, he's really not listening to what I'm saying anymore. So always kind of do a check on yourself to whether your posture and what have you is not sending the wrong signals. Key points in the interview. Rapport is something you need to establish quickly. They'll usually, ice break at first to kind of relax you. They'll usually go through the description of the job. Sometimes it's good to ask for, what kind of a person are you looking for the position. That'll give you a set of information about the behaviors that they're looking for to be exhibited by the incumbent. They may say, a good question, we need somebody who's a self-starter, someone who needs minimal management, someone who's very good with customer skills, interpersonal skills, yada, yada, yada. But again, you've got, again, another set of information that's going to help you sell yourself, and that's your primary purpose in the interview. Sometimes people forget. You're there basically to sell yourself above all the rest, and you do that through storytelling, relating to them experiences that you've had, real-life experiences that kind of testify to the fact that you've been there, done that, you have that skill, you have that knowledge, so on and so forth. Key things in the interview. Be a good listener. Don't be too quick to answer, especially if you're not sure about the question. Don't bring up benefits. If you do, they think you're there for something other than the job. If they open the forum to benefits discussion, it's okay then. You can talk about that, ask any questions you choose. Be Mr. or Mrs. Flexible or Miss Flexible. Portray yourself, communicate yourself as a flexible, adaptable person. I mean, it's common sense. You just have more utility to the company. You're the kind of guy or gal that goes the extra mile, will step up to the plate when the needs of the business are required. Another thing is you need to, and this is really a knockoff, this one will cost you the job many times, you need to in some fashion communicate interest and enthusiasm. Don't go off the wall and appear to be too anxious, but interest and enthusiasm, and you can do that by simply responding to things that are being said. Maybe they're talking about some phase of your project that you've been working on, and maybe that sparks your, but give them some feedback. Don't rely on the vibes in the interview to kind of convey that. Make some firm statements about, things that appear to be interesting to you, so on and so forth. Lastly, and again, it's because of our shortness of time, an important thing in the interview is at the close, you need to ask for the job in some fashion. They usually close, and they'll tell you, "Do you have any more questions?" You'll simply say, "No, thank you very much for spending time with me today. Appreciate that. I've got a good understanding of the job, so on and so forth. Thanks so much. I think it's really an exciting, challenging position that I can really add some value in. I look forward to joining your team." Not in those words, but something along those lines to let them know that you want the job. Don't leave it to chance. They may think, well, maybe he was practicing his interview skills. He never once did say he wanted the job. So as I say, don't leave it to chance. They'll tell you what the next steps are, when you'll be contacted. You go home then, create your thank you letter, send it via the mail. You can also email it, but don't only use email. Send it through the mail or fax it. If they told you 3 weeks, maybe halfway in, call them. Do some follow-up, very important step. A lot of people don't do it. Follow up, find out if things are still on track. You may find that the program has been pushed out. Maybe there was a tops-down directive saying all movement of personnel is frozen. We have budget issues. So you would have sat there for 3 weeks thinking, not been contacted. Could be I missed the job or they've given the job to someone else. Let me close on this now. I appreciate you stopping by for a few moments. If you'd like to chat with us further, we offer a free resume critique, absolutely no obligation. We're not a high-pressure firm. Most of us are retired executives. Some of us are still active in the HR arena as well as recruiters. We have a very varied set of backgrounds, almost all disciplines, so I think we can add some value. We're in this because we like to be in this, not that it's a main income stream for us. So we welcome you to make contact with us. Again, our web is www.jobhuntcoach.com. Our email address is myjobhuntcoach@gmail.com. Again, my name is Jim Simak. I wish you well in your career search, and again, hopefully this has been a little bit of benefit to you. Thanks again for stopping by.